we have somebody on the phone, so let's call the meeting to order, have a roll call. Jim?
Here.
Yes, sir.
Mark Lemay, Pete Georgantes.
Kelly Boyer.
Collis Adams.
Okay, we all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Going to suspend the minutes for tonight because we did it on a new IA and Derek wants to send it all out for us to look at before we approve it. So, and I don't have any announcements, so does anybody have any announcements?
Peter?
Mark?
I would just like to say thank you to the Goffstown Fire Department and to all the members who went to the fire on Silver Lane this past week. Great job done by all. Thank you for the mutual aid and thank you for the help. I just want to say greatly appreciated.
Okay, I think it goes without saying, they did a great job, best they could do.
Yep.
Is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, first up will be the fire, oh, I'm sorry, oh,
Go on.
I didn't realize he was with the public. Go right ahead.
Hi, Jeffrey Pennard. I'm a lieutenant with the Goffstown Police Department, also a town resident. I just want to come in and take a moment to give a big shout out to our election officials for all their hard work they put in behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly. Most people don't see what goes on into it, and their decision makes voters on election day feel effortless. This time around, Kathy Ball and her team knocked it out of the park. Their focus on details and top-notch organization made a huge difference in with the amount of voter turnout we had. Thanks to everyone involved for their hard work and their commitment to democracy. I had to write it down or otherwise I wouldn't be able to do it. So I just wanted to give that big shout out because I think it's important that people recognize what happens there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I also want to add, I think the electioneering ordinance worked very well.
I think it did. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other public comment, we'll move on to the fire chief. And it's on page 6.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight I have for you a request to extend the emergency hourly pay rate adjustment. If you recall, back in October 23, you authorized me to institute an emergency hourly pay rate adjustment for the hiring of EMTs at EMTB, AEMT, and paramedic level. The authorization was for a 6-month period, and then there was a subsequent extension was authorized to November 3rd. Currently, we have 12 per diem employees consisting of 3 EMTs, 4 AEMTs, and 5 paramedics. This has improved our ability to cover the shifts from vacant positions and other staff shortages due to sick, vacation, personal, and workers' compensation vacancies when it's available. As it stands now, we currently have 5 vacancies, and we're actively recruiting for the positions as well as waiting to get a couple of potential hires. So these per diem part-time employees really make a difference in helping us with the staffing.
And again, you're looking for 6 months?
Yes.
I do have a question. It's effective until April 7th, and that's just after you go to vote. Should that be adjusted to reflect voting, or does that make no impact on?
I don't think it will make a huge impact. This will allow the chief to pivot depending on what we are in for an operating budget at that time.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions? Can I get a motion?
I get a motion to authorize the fire chief to extend the emergency hourly pay rate adjustment as detailed in the letter for the purpose of hiring of per diem personnel at the EMTB, EMTA, and the paramedic level of certification to provide supplemental staffing for emergency operation in the Goffstown Fire Department due to several positions that are currently vacant within the Goffstown Fire Department. This extension of this authorization will be in effect until April 7th, 2025, at which time the fire chief will bring forward the recommendation to continuance of this temporary pay rate. Don't ask me to read it again.
Second.
I have one question on this way the motion, recommendation to continue or not?
Yes,
Would that be more pro, because you,
yes, yep.
okay. All right. Okay, we have a motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. It's a roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes,
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Derek, you want to get started?
Sure. We'll start on the town administrator's report at tab 8A. You have your committee meeting assignment for the next 2 weeks. Tomorrow night at 6 PM, the budget committee will meet at the high school. Wednesday at 6 PM, the Goffstown River Advisory Committee will meet in this room.
Yes, I have it.
At 6:30 PM, Library Board of Trustees will meet at the Public Library.
I'll be there.
And at 7 PM, Parks and Rec Commission will be at the Parks and Rec office.
is that the one I
I
said?
won't be,
Okay,
I believe our Selectman Lemay is able to cover that.
yep,
On Thursday at 6 PM, Budget Committee at the high school again.
I'll be there.
Next week, there are no scheduled meetings. Just a reminder, with the Thanksgiving holiday, Goffstown Library closes early on Wednesday at 2 PM. Town Hall, Public Library, Parks and Rec, Public Works, and the transfer station will be closed on Thanksgiving. And the day after Thanksgiving, those will all be closed as well. Curbside trash and recycling for Thursday and Friday of next week will occur on Friday. They'll do both days on Friday. Your next page, you have your consent agenda. You have a full-time police officer, retro pay. This was for an officer that came out of probation, but we neglected to give them a step that they were due. You have a per diem EMT. This is a temporary increase for the staff shortages that was talked about a moment ago. You have rights to inter for Shirley Hill Cemetery, cremation garden lot number 13. Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 3, Lot 106, and Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 2, Lot 17C. You have the notice of appointment of a police officer and the 2024 equalization municipal assessment data certification for the entire board to sign.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Anybody have any questions? I have one question, and that's on the cremation. Oh, I saw a bill in there for that. Did we send that out and then we get reimbursed?
I know that there was a bill for, you may have been referring to, there was a voucher under general assistance. So that's not
Okay.
related to the interment necessarily.
All right.
But yes, we did have a general assistance that the town had to help out with.
Okay. So the motion was by Kelly?
Collis.
Collis, seconded by you. Jim?
yes.
yes,
Yes.
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 Motion passes 5-0.
At your next page, you have your assessor's recommendations. These are all for the 2025 tax year, now that the second bill has gone out. There are veterans tax credits with an approval recommended for map 6. Well, there's 6 of them. If anyone's really interested, they can look at the packet. 2025 tax year, all veterans tax credit, there is 1 property. 2025 tax year, veterans tax credit for service-connected disability, there are 2. And then finally, 2025, this is exemptions for solar energy systems, and there are 3 lots for that.
motion to approve the assessor's recommendation is presented this evening.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Collis. Any questions? Hearing none. Jim?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm gonna abstain.
Yes.
So it's 4-0-1.
On your next page, you have the proposed 2025 holiday schedule. from departments. There are no real big changes with this version. We do want to just note some of the early closings that are noted prior to, and then prior to both on Christmas Eve and on New Year's Eve, there would be proposed early closings for Town Hall, Parks and Rec, as well as the transfer station and DPW. And then you also have a proposed transfer station and curbside pickup on the next page after that. So we would just be looking for approval from the board.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 proposed holiday schedule with the 12 designated holidays and 2 early closure days.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Jim?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
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 Motion passes 500.
Thank you. At tab 8E, we have a request from the Goffstown Main Street program. They had recently reached out to request permission to hang wreaths on the town-owned village lampposts. This is very similar to hanging flags. I felt it was appropriate they would come to this board for permission or to deny the request under your flag policy.
How long?
They want to do it up through the New Year's Eve event that they have planned. They're going to decorate them similar. They put corn stalks on them for pumpkin regatta. They're going to decorate them with ribbons so they look like candy canes, and then they want to have the wreaths in place until just after New Year's.
Is there a provision in that request that they maintain them throughout the time that they're up as well?
There is, and I'll request contact information. That way, if any
Falls
come
down
down
or
or falls
something.
down, we'll have somebody, a point of contact that we can get in touch with.
And a cleanup time frame too?
Yes.
Motion?
Make a motion to allow the wreaths to be placed on the lamppost
By the Main Street.
by the Main Street. Yep.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none. Jim?
Yes.
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 At tab 8.
No, we didn't. Okay, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. At tab 8F, you have a vote to adopt the proposed stop sign on Joppa Hill Road at the intersection of Back Mountain Road ordinance. You held public hearings on this ordinance on October 7th and October 28th. There wasn't very much discussion from the public on this, so the police chief did present, so I'd be asking for a motion to adopt and then to instruct DPW to install stop sign as well as the one warning sign that was discussed.
Motion to adopt a stop sign on Joppa Hill Road at the intersection of Back Mountain Road ordinance and to instruct DPW to install stop signs at this location.
Second.
Motion by Collis, seconded by Mark. Any further discussion, questions? Kelly?
Can we also have them do the change of traffic pattern indicator that they've done that in the past when they've added a sign? DPW has put notice that the traffic, okay, thank you.
We got a thumbs up by the DPW director.
You know what I meant, right? Okay, perfect, thank you. I'm good.
Okay, we had a motion by Collis. It was seconded by Mark. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none. Jim?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
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 Motion passes 500.
Thank you. At tab 8G, you have a request from DPW. In 2023, the select board approved temporary stipends for on-call. This is mostly for the supervisory staff. Last year, we started it on the Monday of Thanksgiving week and ended it on March 31st. The compensation for those employees that were the on-call employee would be an additional 1.5 hours at 1.5 time the employee's regular rate for weekdays. Weekend days would be 3 hours at time and a half, and holidays would be 6 hours at time and a half. They have a rotation between the supervisors with one person being paid for the stipend period. So the request is to continue that for this year, beginning November 25th and to run through April 13th for a total of 20 weeks.
How many people on the supervisory?
4 on the on-call and 1 on a merit, who's the fleet supervisor.
So a total of 5, okay. Any questions? Motion?
Make a motion to allow the on-call winter stipend to go from November 25th, 24 to April 13th, 2025, for a total of 20 weeks.
Second.
Everybody? Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Jim?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 Motion passes.
Motion passes 500.
Thank you. At tab 8H, you have proposed 2025 personnel policy amendments. And just to remind the board, on October 17th, you had a non-meeting with the town's labor attorney. Some of those items that we spoke of are included in here. Specifically, we talked about reporting time worked. We also talked about break time for nursing mothers and a handful of other items. Additionally, I think we've made some proposed changes to better define the work week pay period, payroll deductions. And then I do want to highlight on page, on the longevity, we do have a proposal for the board to consider to get all non-union employees on the same longevity schedule. This would match the CBAs that were recently negotiated with dispatch, patrol, and DPW. I'm having trouble finding it.
Everybody had a chance to read through this, or are you prepared to vote on this tonight, or would you like time?
I have some questions.
Okay.
Do you want me to ask them?
Yep, go ahead.
My first one is page 39. There's no bullet number, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It says the position must utilize an existing job description and adhere to the number of hours approved by the appointing authority. I agree with that, but should we add another section of if they need to make changes to the job description? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think Vice Chairwoman Boyer is referring to when department heads are authorized to offer a conditional offer of employment without coming to the select board first, and there are some very limited conditions that that's allowed. We would see that if there's a change to the existing job description or a change to the number of hours previously approved by the select board, they would actually need to come to the select board to get those changes made. If you'd like us, we could include some guidance language in there, but it's really, this is under, I think we adopted this probably 2 or 3 years ago, where there are some very limited cases where department heads can issue conditional offers of employment. So is your preference to have guidance language in there?
So I was just gonna point out that that's a subsection of bullets.
Okay.
All we did was reword the existing bullets to make sure that there was clarity. If you look at the second one from the bottom, it specifies on the same level as this exceptions, any deviation from the conditions outlined above must receive prior approval from the appointing authority before a condition is offered.
Great. And then in that same line of questioning, I didn't see anything in here about following the internal posting requirements before a conditional can be extended, offered.
Under the recruitment procedure,
On that same page, page 39. I guess I was asking, is part of the conditional offer that should we add that they've
Yeah.
met the internal posting
That
requirements?
is in here as well.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I'm just trying to find which bullet it is, because like you said, they're not numbered. Maybe I'll put a note to give them sub-numbers. So it says on that same subsection, if you see the one that's not in red, the last bullet, if you go up 2 from that, the department head must follow and fully document the recruitment process as outlined in Article 5, Section 7, which is the full process that talks about posting, interviewing,
Okay, so that will
timelines.
cover that as well.
Yeah.
All right. Those are my only 2 things from there.
And that longevity piece I was speaking of is it's on page 45 of the packet. Again, this, in 2017, we split longevity out so that new employees were on a different timescale than all employees. But what we've seen with many of the other unions and what we've heard from existing non-union employees was, the biggest question is why do we have 2 different schedules? Why are we treating employees hired after January 1st, 2017 in a different way than everybody else? So, and then the other item I did want to point out on page 69 of your packet, the meeting with the town attorney talked about a sample policy, a salaried employee policy. So this is the draft language that was provided by the attorney in a form similar to many of our other policies. On page 70, there are 2, questions for the board. The first is the attorney recommended that there be some flexibility for salaried employees. Really, the question the board should discuss and consider is what that allowable time period for flexing time. Do you want it within the same pay period, within the same month? How flexible do you want to be? And then does the board want to do anything for salaried employees for flexible scheduling, for establishing a 4-day work week schedule? It's really, those are the 2 questions for the board to consider. And I think we gave you, there's quite a few red lines and amendments in this. We weren't necessarily looking for approval this evening, but we'd be open to any questions, discussion, and we'd be hoping for votes on these
Thank you.
at your December 2nd meeting at the latest, so we can post them for 2025.
I have a couple more questions.
Go ahead.
Can I keep going?
I have a public hearing at 6:30, so.
Okay, well, I can take up that time.
Okay.
Page 41. It's the first, I guess would be section 7, item B, the part-time, temporary, seasonal, and per diem. I was thinking at the end of the second sentence, employees in this category shall be required to complete an employee information update form and payroll information prior to start date.
Okay.
Because that's a Department of Labor law. And then my secondary question was with seasonal, particularly with seasonal employees, do we have anything in there about their end date?
We don't currently. We have some seasonal employees that have a longer season than others.
Right.
So typically when they present the employee status report, they indicate on there what the position seasonally is. And when the department is transitioning them out of that, they get another ESR form that tells them that they're ending that seasonal term. So it could be something that we add in here or something that we add to the form to say when they're expected to work through. I know some of them are a little bit up in the air with the
Right.
summer help as to
Yep.
exactly when they're gonna end, depending on their availability.
I'm just wondering if we need to put like if we had to extend a season that they,
Is there any reason is there a reason it has to be 6 months?
No.
We already have another section in here that indicates that they can't go beyond 6 months in a position that would be staffed at 32 or more hours without pre-approval of the select board, because that would move them from a seasonal temporary into a permanent part-time role or full-time role.
I just meant to keep an eye on it.
But we could certainly add
budgetarily.
something if the board wanted language to say, seasonal will be no more than 6 months or something to that effect.
Like extension approval or
Yeah, I
whatever.
don't like the 6-month thing. Oh, I mean,
Well, for lifeguards, that's too long, obviously.
Yeah.
for lifeguards, but for other positions, it may not be. If we
Right.
wanted to bring somebody in, as we talked about possibly one-time flaggers during the construction season, and you wanted to hire somebody like that, that would be more than 6 months.
Depending on the construction season,
Yeah.
it could be.
Adam's back there shaking his head, oh no.
Just got my attention.
Okay.
That's the only thing I'm just thinking of when,
No, I just meant if they were given an end date, that approvals of the extension of that end date come to this board, but it sounds like we haven't had any issues with that I'm thinking purely seasonal.
Right,
We
no.
haven't seen anything come up.
No, I mean, our per diem staff, like we have for the fire
Which is
department,
different,
they're year-round,
obviously,
so
yeah.
they're lumped in this same category with temporary and seasonal. Those would continue as long as they're certified and, trained appropriately, and the department's still finding it operationally feasible. So, currently, I don't recall ever seeing an end date in the conditional offer letters, but that could
Okay.
be another place that we could list that to make sure that people are notified what their anticipated season would be.
Yeah. I'm good with leaving that out for now, as long as we can add that they need to complete their paperwork prior to their start date. Or on their start date, whatever the norm is. But people can't be working before they fill out their labor paperwork.
right, I think that we should get a chance to look at it, shoot your questions to Danielle and Derek and Danielle, and be ready to vote on it, on anything on the 2nd. That work?
That works for us, yes.
Okay, that's what we'll do.
Have more questions?
Go ahead. Go ahead, no, go ahead and ask your question.
No, I can
just-
email them, that's fine. It's more language stuff, so.
Okay, we wanna I'll read about it by that time and be ready to go, right?
Derek, was the other section you were talking about the work week section, hours of employment?
Well, there's a completely separate policy, the salaried employment policies. It
Okay.
starts on page 69 of the packet, and if you look on page 70, I've highlighted the attorney recommended specific language, but we do have 2 call-outs there for board
Okay.
discussion and decision point.
You all set? So, this is a public hearing. Open the public hearing. And the town of Goffstown last conducted its hazardous mitigation plan update in 2021 through a grant that was awarded by the Department of New Hampshire Homeland Security and Emergency Management. The current plan is approved from March 24, 2021 to March 23, 2026. The grant is funded by federal contributions of 75% and a local match of 25%. We are proposing to utilize this in-kind manpower to meet our match. On August 9th, 2024, the Selectmen authorized the fire chief to apply for a grant through the New Hampshire Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management to conduct the plan update to meet the March 2026 current plan. On October 4th, 2024, it was notified that we have been awarded the grant contingent upon completing a grant agreement and approval from the governor and council. The estimated cost breakdown for this plan is as follows. The total project cost is $17,499.56. request for federal share is $13,124.67. Goffstown in-kind match would be $4,374.89. And the request comes from Chief Murray. Questions? No? You all set?
Ready?
Motion?
Do you want to open the public
I
hearing?
did open it, I'm sorry. Let's open the public hearing. Is anybody here? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I opened it up at the beginning.
Propose the select board to accept the terms of the Building Resilience Infrastructure and Communities BRIC grant as presented in the amount of $13,124.67 for updating the Goffstown Hazard Mitigation Plan. The select board acknowledges that the total cost of this project will be $17,499.56, in which the town of Goffstown will be responsible for 25% match of $4,374.89, and to further authorize Chief Sean Murray to sign all documents related to this grant.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Mark, go ahead.
I just had one question, Chief. I noticed on the application that the completion date is September 23rd, 2027. I'll let you get up here before I keep talking at you. What is the limitations of the funds? Is there a time frame for which we have to disperse them?
I don't think there is, as long as it's being used for hazard mitigation.
Okay. So as far as the grant, is there, or the match, I'm sorry, is there a time frame of which we have to provide that?
No.
Okay. And is that in your 2025 budget, or where is that, those funds coming from?
Actually, we're gonna use, work in kind. So when they go to update the hazard mitigation plan, there'll be a number of meetings, to go back through the plan, meet with, you know, elected officials and everyone. And so all that time spent goes towards, the grant in kind.
That was all I had, and thank you, Chief, for doing this, as this is something that we have to get done, so I appreciate you finding funding for it. I'm good. Anything else?
Anybody else? Seeing none, you made the motion, Mark?
Yep.
Seconded by Collis. We'll call for a vote. Jim?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
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 Motion passes 5-0. And we have the bid review and recommendation or the proposed 25 amendments to the town purchasing policy. Would that be correct?
Yes. At tab 8I, you have proposed amendments to the town's purchasing policy. Again, we've provided this with you. We're not necessarily seeking approval this evening unless the board wants to make that vote, but really here to ask questions. We'll be looking for a vote as we go into the December 2nd meeting. So the proposed changes, this created appendices for any policy exemptions and waivers. It expanded the language for technology provisions, including software and hardware. There are provision for use of grant funds and tracking requirements. This is really to comply with our existing grant management policy. Added clarifying language for sole source purchases, state bid procedures, contractual obligations, diagnostic repairs, and emergency purchases. Defined compliant procedures for use of vendor lists, and then updated the thresholds, and that is in Appendix A, which is on page 92 of your packet. This would be a change to the thresholds, when quotes are required, sealed bid, and all those.
Do we have anything in here about rentals? As far as, like, for example, that doesn't come from, or insurance? Like, I'm thinking of the ambulance, and then we got that other ambulance that didn't work, so we had to go through a whole nother process to get that. Like, what's the best case for if insurance is paying for it or not?
So insurance claims actually operate outside of the purchasing policy because we have to abide by whatever the insurance requires.
Right.
So insurance is provided on any rental equipment so long as it's below a certain threshold or an agreement is set forth in writing. So when we rent the ambulance or something like that, we have to provide the written agreement between the town and the vendor to the insurance company for their pre-approval before it's rented.
Okay.
As far as rental of equipment, like seasonal rental of equipment.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, but I can't think
Or-
of a specific outside of insurance, really, that was coming to mind, so.
DPW usually has rental of certain equipment that they need during the construction season.
They rent excavators,
They rent
Mini
excavators
excavator.
and other types of,
large excavators too. It's expensive,
Right.
$5,000-6,000 a month.
So should that be noted in the purchasing policy, that even if it's a rental, if it meets the financial threshold?
I mean, it's something we could definitely look at. I know the auditors were really interested in us updating the purchasing policy for items that we're purchasing. Under the GASB rules, the rentals are treated differently if they're considered a short-term lease, meaning
Okay.
they're less than 12 months. So they would have a different set of rules. They're not reportable if they are in that short-term type of timeframe.
Okay, so we don't need to talk about that right now.
Back on page 92, I have questions. Our current purchasing policy on line, the first line, isn't it 25,000?
No, it's actually $4,999.99, so that threshold just under $5,000.
Okay, and you wanted to take it to 50,000?
Yes.
And these thresholds, just so you're aware, are well below what the federal thresholds are or other comparable sized municipalities. But we understand it is a change, pretty significant from what we're currently doing. So we wanted to kind of hit a mark that's somewhere between the two.
I'm not for that. I think it's too much. I think we have a responsibility as we're going through this with taxpayers to somebody, if something's gonna be $50,000, I think we should know about it. We should have a say in it. All the way down. I mean, that's my feelings, but hey, I'm just one of five.
But I guess, so you want to be informed, or you want to have a say in?
I want to have a say. And it doesn't have to be, I'm willing to adjust, but not up to $50,000.
Danielle, can you talk about why the $50,000 was what we landed on?
Yeah, I mean, when we take a look at other purchasing policies.
92.
92. We're finding that the efficiency factor is completely lost when we're trying to go out and get, essentially an RFP, do a sealed bid. It can take 12 weeks between developing it, getting it ready to go before the board, reviewing that RFP, putting it out to bid, waiting for companies to do sealed bid on something that's, painting a hallway or replacing carpet in a single room. If we're doing large-scale projects to a building or a facility or a piece of equipment, it's going to be over that $50,000 threshold anyway, so large projects would still be part of that process. But what we're trying to do is capture the little projects and the little operational things, including supplies. I mean, as it turns out, we've seen quite a bit of an increase in supplies, costs for various things, whether that's, contracted services where we have roads and things where, okay, the piece of the actual Continental paving or whoever's doing the paving part is out to bid, but a lot of other pieces of those components may hit that threshold. So DPW previously, for the last few years, was bringing forward a small vendor list, which the auditors informed us the way we were utilizing that is outside of what's allowable under the reporting standards. We can't just give a blanket approval for any vendor on that list. So by implementing a different process for that and increasing our thresholds to be a little bit more manageable on an operations standpoint, we're able to save some efficiencies on staff time, but also in getting projects completed, purchases made, repairs of equipment and vehicles, which we were seeing pretty much everything was coming through, was either showing up as a waiver or an exception that I remember even Chairman Georgantis had brought up, like, why are we waiving our policy for every single request? And it's because our thresholds were so low that they weren't operationally feasible anymore. So that was kind of our reasoning for coming up with these numbers.
My concern is way too much. We're responsible, we have more responsibility than just to give carte blanche on $50,000. That's what you're asking for.
So-
I'm not willing to do that, as an elected official. I was given, responsibility to, look at what we're spending our money on and not just give carte blanche to a department, and nothing that I have anything against the department heads. But I think that kind of a purchase needs to come before us and we discuss it.
Yeah, the other reason too for going with that threshold is it was below the CIP threshold. So the CIP threshold's $50,000. So the project in CIP would come before the board through that process, through budgeting, et cetera. But anything below that is below the CIP threshold, below the fixed asset policy that's required for the asset.
CIP is a planning tool.
It
It has
is.
nothing to do with the way we operate our budget. That doesn't reduce our responsibilities as a select board. I'm not gonna argue it anymore, I won't be in favor of that, I'll be the one that says no. I don't agree with it. 50,000 is just way too much to give somebody carte blanche.
So with the current threshold being at $4,999,
I'm amenable to changing it, but not the
Can I finish
$50,000.
my
Go ahead.
that's the current threshold. This is at $49,999.99. So $5,000 to $50,000, right? What is something up from the $5,000 that you would be okay with, noting that more and more purchases are coming in over that $5,000?
But it's our responsibility to look at those purchases too. I'd say I'd double it, I'd go up to 10,000, but I'm not gonna, I don't feel comfortable at $50,000. I think it's our responsibility if that stuff goes through us. I know they're trying to make it more efficient, that they could say, we don't have to go to the select board, we could just spend the $50,000 or $49,000, we don't have to go before them. I want $50,000 purchase to come before me.
So it's more
Can I ask a
about
question?
the approval
Go ahead,
and
Jim.
not the reporting.
Peter, you okay with the 50 to 99,000, the next box?
No, yeah, I would be that, except responsible party would be the department, the select board.
So typically, the way we have operated is your first level would require no bids. So what we currently have is just under $5,000. We don't need quotes. It's really in the best interest of the town. So if you call and you need something done and the cost is $4,000, the department head can move forward with it. The second level, which currently does not come to the select board, is when a department head needs to spend between $5,000 and $10,000. They get, is that correct? Yeah. 3 quotes. So you would tell somebody, okay, if we're going to do this project, we've budgeted for it, we have the funds available. We need to document that we reached out to at least 3 vendors and got quotes for that work. That still doesn't come to the select board necessarily for approval. So
Well, you said it's budgeted, so if it was budgeted, it did come before us. When your statement was, it's a budgeted item, so it goes out to bid. So if it was budgeted, it had come before us normally.
So I think
So-
I can speak about my department. I had an item that we did recently in this building that was not something that I specifically called out in my budget presentation to the select board or the budget committee, but we looked at where we were tracking, and I said, we need to get our doors so they have electronic access and ADA handles on the doors, because that is something that we're trying to do throughout this building, because we have personal identifiable information within that office, in the planning and building files, that I want to be able to track when people are coming in, especially off hours, and we need those ADA handles. So I tasked Brian Ray of, get the vendor in here and get that done. That was somewhere around $4,000. That wasn't something that I specifically budgeted for, but knew that we were tracking well enough that I could accomplish it.
Yeah, but that's under that $4,000, $5,000 limit. I'm just saying, I don't agree with carte blanche $50,000. I think I have more responsibility to what we're doing. And to answer Jim's question, Jim, on that second line, all the way over, approvals are required,
Yeah,
I would say select board, governing body.
yeah, me too.
Then, so I guess we may need to go back to department heads, because currently, I don't know that the department heads would want to change the 3-quote method. Right now, I feel like we're a little bit tied as it is with 3 quotes for the second level. So if you're adding select board as the approval required, that's going to delay projects even further. Would it be helpful to the board if we provided some similar sized municipalities, so you get an idea of what other municipalities our size are using for their threshold requirements? Would that be helpful, or is it simply
I
something
think
that
some
you?
examples like that would
I
be.
like that idea.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm still not gonna change my mind. I don't care what other towns are doing. I know what my responsibilities are. I watch the expense, as you well know, I'm the one, almost every week, I got a note on there questioning something. And I wanna be able to, I don't wanna have to go, well, it's below the 50,000 limit, so I really don't have anywhere I can complain about. I wanna be able to say, I made the mistake if we bought something for $45,000. That's just what but I'm not, I'm amenable to making it, up to 20,000 if you don't wanna go out for bid, but I just think we need to be more control of those kind of dollars, especially right now. Go ahead, Daniel.
I'm just thinking, I'm wondering if, we would obviously need to discuss about it for whether or not it makes sense with all the departments, but I'm wondering if there is a level there, 20 or 25,000, where the department could move forward, and then at that second level, even if it is that higher threshold, say whatever the difference is, 25 to 100,000, they come before the board, but only require the 3 quotes rather than having to go out to the bid. Because right now, we're going out to bid for things that are $10,000, and you're not even getting vendor responses by the time you put something out there. It's such a small job, they're like, we don't even want to touch that. So I'm wondering if there is a change to the thresholds and the approval process. I don't want to lock it down so that departments can't move forward, but I'm wondering if that's a way to meet in the middle.
I wanna lock it down that we know if they're gonna spend $50,000. If that means getting 3 quotes and coming to us, fine.
I think that makes more sense than having them go do the RFP process. But I still, so even if this was 1 cent up to $25,000, can we add in some sort of reporting mechanism for the select board to get, what we're purchasing?
At the way this is set up right now, there's nothing against Chief Sereno, but he could technically go out and buy a car. $50,000. You could technically go out and buy a car.
I know, but my question
We wouldn't
was,
have any say on it.
my question was, if it was $25,000, is there some sort of reporting mechanism that we can instill in this policy that the finance department will provide the select board with items that were purchased? I mean, what sort of, because I understand what Pete is saying and I agree with him. I understand the frustration and the growing limitations, like times have changed. We're trying to be more efficient, so I'm looking for a middle ground here. But how do we still keep the board informed of what's going on? I think that's an important piece that's missing in this, is no matter what we decide, there has to be some sort of informative mechanism where we're not necessarily requiring the department heads to come to us, you know, for certain things, but $25,000 is a pretty good amount of money, and I think we should know what those things are. And if we're seeing across the board, every department purchasing at $24,999.99, you know, every single time, then we have an issue. So I think just for the oversight of it, there has to be, not, I agree with Pete, and not that we don't trust our department heads, but there has to be some sort of reporting mechanism for the board to just, in good faith, have eyes on it.
Go ahead, Jim.
Maybe a review of what the other towns might have, some of those ideas in them. So maybe it's, because I agree with you too. So even if we're not gonna change our, you know, the numbers, there may be some of those, doing things that Kelly was just talking about, if we take a look at what some of the other towns are doing.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm good. I'm on board with that. I don't want to sit down here on Monday night before the meeting and see that the way this is written, that there's a $45,000 bill there and I'm expected to just okay it.
I'm thinking about it the same way as when department heads used to have to come and request to hire somebody. It was necessary at one point, but it was adding more pieces to the puzzle. But
And it was
then,
hard to find people, so we made that a change.
right,
I get it.
but then we get the employee status report, so maybe it's something like that, that's a static piece of information in our books where we're getting, you know, a report, but it's not necessarily adding to the, go ahead.
Derek has-
I think we could do whether it's a monthly, a PO report, that would capture everything in level 2 and up, whatever those levels the board decides to set. Anything that requires a purchase order, we can easily, out of the financial software, provide you with a list of purchase orders, and then potentially on a quarterly basis, we can run a vendor report that says, this is what those vendors are being paid, and then that's where you can also see where maybe if you've got somebody that's hitting the same vendor up for the same project, 3 times a year, maybe that's something that we should put out to bid or should go out for quotes and do a purchase order on.
That's closing the barn door after the horses got out.
So another,
To review what's already been bought, it's too late then. I understand what you're saying, you're keeping an eye on something. I think if I'm hearing what you started with, it was 12 weeks to get something done. That's what we need to streamline, not necessarily the dollar amount, but the streamline the system.
yeah, the other thing too is, there's a couple components. Obviously, the dollar amount, when that dollar threshold was set back in, I think it was the early 2000s, we had it noted, I can pull up our notes for the next discussion, but that dollar amount of $5,000 in today's dollars is a totally different number. So that's something that's a concern
It's a local decision.
for us as well. The other thing that I had in mind as I was saying the CIP, and the reason I mentioned CIP is your capital assets policy has separate thresholds for what's considered a large purchase and has to be on our books. It could be something similar to the personnel plan, whether it's in this or in the capital assets policy, where the board sets conditions of what kind of purchases are allowed to be made. And you could say, okay, maybe a purchase up to $25,000 or $50,000 or whatever it is, can be made by the department, but only if it is not a capital asset. So that could cover something like a project cost that's, recurring or something like that. I don't mean to point at Adam, but I just keep thinking of DPW projects where they have, they're buying barrels, they're trash barrels. It's just by quantity, how many they need, and all of a sudden it's $10,000, and now it's beyond the 3 quote limit. Now they're supposed to do an RFP for barrels,
I get it.
And
that's
it's
what I'm
like, that
saying.
doesn't really make sense, but it also wouldn't be a capital asset. That's considered almost like a consumable, where something is purchased for regular operations, distributed out to each residence, and that's it. So if the board wanted to add conditions such as, it can't be a capital asset or something, because that would be something that we're buying and keeping on our books, which would limit that concern of a department head going out and buying a car or a piece of equipment without the board's approval. It would also limit that, we're not going to do any major improvements to a building, because CIP, while we often think of the capital improvements plan, CIP in our accounting world means construction in progress. So that's actually something that a CIP, a construction in progress, or a large facility improvement wouldn't necessarily be able to be done if we have a condition saying that those types of projects have to go out to bid or have to come before the board with 3 quotes or whatever the conditions are. So we could add conditions into this as well, if that would help kind of separate out the grain from the stock.
Yeah.
You brought up DPW, and quite often they spend that kind of money without, but it's usually, like you say, on a project where they had to go out and buy granite, and they had to
Right.
pave it, and they had, so, but that's built into, he doesn't need to necessarily come in and ask for all those type of things, like $5,000 worth of, underground stuff. That doesn't happen.
But that's the
But
problem.
because it's
It
part of
is
a project.
happening. Our auditors are saying that you're breaking the policy, and we've been cited 2 years in a row in our audit because of the fact that he's not coming in and doing sealed bids for granite curbing, because that would be a complete waste of everyone's time. But under our purchasing policy, there was no exclusion for that. So that's why we were trying to add in exclusions and exceptions, as well as raise the thresholds to try and sort that out.
So I think my problem is
So.
with the thresholds, how's that?
Okay.
Streamline the process if we can, I would go along with that.
Okay.
But if that's just a carte blanche, give somebody a $49,990 credit limit would be, I don't think that's being,
Okay.
I don't
So.
think that's my job to just let people do that.
Okay, so we'll circle back to on the conditions in here to make sure that we've captured them appropriately, and maybe add language that points to when a threshold ties into a purchase, or if there are certain types of projects that aren't subject to the threshold or something like that.
Okay?
Okay,
And then we'll also provide some some similar communities and what they have for thresholds and requirements.
And I wonder if it's not too difficult, I know the reporting functions of the finance software is pretty user-heavy, but if you guys could start at least thinking about, or user-friendly, thinking about some sort of reporting mechanisms just overall that we could start implementing even now. That would be helpful.
Okay, next. So we're gonna pick this up again next meeting, next second.
Yes.
What do we got next? Visualization, infrastructure?
Yep.
Was it,
Yeah, so this is, we got results back on the server virtualization project. We received timely bids from 2 different firms. One of the firms actually submitted 2 different bids. They provided 2 different options. You have an overview memo from Brian Ray, our Information Systems Director. He has a recommendation of WEI's proposal using the Supermicro hardware. And if you look on page 105 of your packet, you have the breakdown of these. Again, so he would be recommending option number 1 in that middle column there. Day 1, so it's broken out into day 1 and day 2. Day 1 is really to design the system, come in, install it, configure it, and it's up and ready to go. Obviously, that doesn't happen on just one day, but that's, I guess, an IT term. Day 2 would be, an additional item would be managed services. This would really be that, that new service is to provide real-time monitoring of the servers 24/7, to have rapid issue resolution, and to really help us in supplement what we already have for IT staff. And that would be a 3-year cost over 3 years. And what I'd like to hand out now is some potential funding, because I know the funding of this project was a question for the board. Selectman Craig, I did email this to you. I'm not sure if you can get access to that, but for the hardware purchase, for the design, deployment, and configuration, again, the cost that is, the bid that's recommended is $258,727.76. You do have $150,000 in the revised default budget available in that line. And I would be recommending that you take the remaining $108,000 and change from the townwide employee benefits line. This is savings that we have in the insurance line from vacant positions, as well as any employees that cash out. So there is a savings there, we anticipate, because there's been quite a few vacancies or quite a bit of turnover, where we've had months with positions not taking benefits. So my recommendation would be to fund it from those two sources. That's funding option number 1. Funding option number 2, again, to use that $150,000 from the revised budget and consider reallocating the Invest NH MPU grant funds. This would limit what you can do with other projects with those remaining funds. And then funding option number 3, for if the board does not want to fund this out of 2024, you could add this back into the 2025 budget, either into the operating budget or as a warrant article. I would recommend against this. These servers have already been placed for almost 8 years now. They are 90% full, so we are actually at the point where, rather than working as designed where they can fault and back up between town hall and police, there are actually certain systems that will are set up to shut down at this point because the servers are so full. So I think it is important that the board move forward. Again, my preference is funding option number 1. And then on day 2, the managed service. This is again the to maintain optimal performance, monitor them, and to resolve any issues that pop up. This is an approximate 3-year cost of just under $44,000. So the board could move that to the operating budget for 25, 26, and 27. That's funding option number 2. Or you could soften that blow a little bit and use some of the Invest New Hampshire MPU grant funds and fund either 25 and 26 or just 25 from those grant funds. Again, those must be allocated by the end of 2024, but you can use them for general governmental services through the end of 2026. So it would be allowable to allocate them now and do that. Those are kind of the 2 options.
Let's start with day 1, funding option 1. The $108,727. Didn't you already allocate that someplace else?
No,
Or weren't you going to use it someplace else? No?
no.
Okay. So the next one, where it says reallocate, invest, those are the numbers you were going to use, the dollars?
The reallocation of those Invest NH MPU grant funds, if we took it from the Invest NH grant funds, that would likely not allow us to do any bids that come in under the Revenue Collection Office, which the board allocated $200,000 towards that purchase, or towards that project when bids come in. That would likely reduce the scope of that project, because we had $200,000 allocated for that. We had an additional $45,000 in funds that had yet to be allocated. So you've got about, between those 2 items, $245,000. So if you take the 108 from that, you're likely gonna have to reduce the scope of the revenue collection.
But we went ahead and the 108 from employee benefits due to turnover and vacancies doesn't affect the other project.
Correct.
But we don't know what that project dollar amount is yet, right?
We do not. We do not. We've been looking at, there is the Mildred Stark Trust Fund. That was a trust fund that was set up for the maintenance of Town Hall. We've been working with the trustees of the trust fund and reviewing the language in the trust document. There may be available income there to help with that project a bit. We just need to get a final answer from the trustees of the trust fund on that. Additionally, there may be some additional savings in other lines that can help with that once we get bids in for that project.
When is the bids due for that project upstairs?
I think it's the week of Thanksgiving, so kind of next week. I don't know specifically, I'd have to.
Could we wait to decide on this until the 2nd?
Yes.
I'd like to know where we're at on that project, and then, if we don't have the funds for that project, well, then we should probably go this way. And then look at something for the other side next year.
If that's board's preference, when we put this RFP out, I think we asked for a hold firm price of 120 days.
Right.
So
Would that work?
that would work.
Does that give everybody time?
I do, again, I put funding option 3 on here, move it out to the 2025 budget, because that is an option. I would recommend against that. I just want to reiterate that. I think you need to pay for this out of 2024 so that we can get this project started and get those servers replaced. But yes, we can wait until your meeting on December 2nd.
Yeah, this is critical, obviously. Derek, with the bid timing, you should be able to give us a recommendation. Okay.
Okay, so we'll do
Yeah,
that
that's fine
also.
with me.
Make sense? What's up next?
We're at tab 8K. And what you have is you have a draft RFP prepared by myself and the police chief for a police facility space needs assessment. This is to seek out the expertise of a firm experienced with the design and execution of police facilities. What we have provided is all the data that is basically the ongoing operations of the police department as currently constituted, as well as estimates on what would be needed to increase us to our anticipated population in 2050 of approximately 22,000 residents. Again, this would be seeking out the expertise of engineering firms to do this. It's broken out into 4 separate tasks, and we would be looking to complete this project in approximately 4 to 6 months, with the hopes that near the end of the project we would be able to present a better understanding of what the police department will need now and into the future to CIP, and then we can start the discussions on the next steps.
Can someone give me the deliverables that we're asking for? Because I guess I'm thinking of, when did we have this done last? 2000?
So Chief Brown
For-
contracted
Stantec,
Stantec in 2018 approximately,
maybe.
to see what could be done for an addition onto the existing building.
Correct.
Yeah, some of that was internal.
Internal.
Reworking as well, just to see if we could reconfigure the inside. some of the HVAC systems, and I think that came in 4 million just for that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And that wasn't for a whole lot, but this would be to look at what is the typical for, what you need for square footage for office space, locker room space, for the dispatch center, and all those items, and to start to lay out exactly what is needed. So the deliverables, for the most part, are on page 110 of your packet, under the pre-schematic design plan. And then there's also a cost estimate with a potential schedule for design, development, and construction phases.
So I see on here the facilitate public discussion to establish architectural aesthetics.
Yeah.
Is that truly the intent? Because I want us to be very cautious of whomever we're working with, that the communication on this is clear. And that just strikes me as the, like, we're doing a new building, so I think that has to be, I don't have an answer for it, and I don't know what the intent was, but just something we have to think about if we're gonna ask for public input, like how that's presented.
I think ultimately, you're going to be going to the voters of this town and asking for a pretty large bond article. So I think there does need to be some level of public involvement on the needs of the police department, but also is things such as the aesthetics and kind of what it, those kind of
I'm not
things.
saying it shouldn't happen, I just want to be very, like, making sure whomever takes this on is gonna be clear on communication and strategy for reaching out to the community. The library went through a similar process, and the general consensus was that they didn't do enough community outreach, of which I know how much they actually did, and that's just one thing that comes to mind with this, is I'm just hoping that someone who has good experience with that can participate.
Is it in this draft to make that whoever gets this, to bring it to the public? And
So ultimately, it would be to report back to the select board. This is not the point where we're going.
No, I mean, once the design is done, that would be this company, right? If whoever wins this draft, they'd be the ones that sign in it. Would that be correct? Is that what we're doing?
Well, they'll be giving us basically this analysis of what it needs. And then if
Right.
we then say it's gonna cost X amount of dollars, the next steps for us to come to you guys and also start looking at how are we gonna do this? And if we then hire a company or we go through that whole bonding, they agree, then yes, that's when we're gonna do it. Am I right on that, Garrett?
Yep.
Yes, but it's not, this isn't, the purpose of this isn't to get, like, bidding level documents. It's
Right,
not,
right.
it's not a,
This is
it's
just
not this
a
point.
needs.
It's more of a conceptual of,
Yep.
this is how many square feet we need, this is how big you need, this is how much parking you need, those kind of things, and kind of also look at,
Okay.
This is essentially what Collis has been asking for the last couple of months, of just, we need something tangible we can put our hands on and kind of see where we're at and not just shooting from the hip as far as like numbers. Would that be accurate, Collis?
Yeah, yep, exactly. So do we need to take action on this tonight, on the draft, or can we move this out to?
If the board wants to move it out, that's fine. I can make some changes to the dates. The anticipated release of the RFP was tomorrow. However, if the board doesn't vote to release it today, that's fine. We just need to change some of the dates, and it pushes it out a little bit further into January.
Is there something on there, Carlos, you have a question on?
No, not really, just want a little more time.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, up to you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Go ahead. Kelly, you all set with that? I mean, I'm all set with releasing it, but that's,
Yeah, so am I. I'm ready to release.
Yep.
The longer we wait, the more we spend, the higher the price is gonna go, and who knows what'll happen.
Jim, how you feeling?
So I'm good, Rick. I'm ready, good to go.
Okay, does somebody wanna make a motion, or what do you wanna do?
I make a motion that we move forward with the request for proposal, Goffstown Police Facility Space Needs Assessment.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call.
I'm sorry, roll call. Jim?
Yes.
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 Yes, I'm okay with the
You
price.
okay, Collins?
Yeah.
Okay, great, I'm glad to hear that. All right, so we'll go ahead with that.
Okay, thank you.
And that kind of rolls into our next,
That's everything for the town administrator's report. And then
okay,
you get
let's
your
go right
action
over to
matrix.
the action matrix, right on top of the action matrix there is. We took care of that today, right?
Yes.
Okay. Fire department, 3 imaging, we're still, that's a ways away, right?
So they've got a rolling grant acceptance. They only take so many grant applications when they open up. So the fire department's gonna continue to hammer that when those grants come up.
Okay. Solid waste trailers, dump truck, engine 1, ambulance 3. How you make it?
Engine 1 returned today.
Engine 1's good.
And mine are still out.
Yours are still out?
Yep.
Ambulance still out?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Got non-public?
Yes, 2 brief items under compensation.
Which isn't, yeah, I think it's necessary.
You all set?
Yep.
You wanna do one more request for public comment? I know.
Sure.
Just in case.
Anybody
I
here
have
for
something.
public comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Of what?
I'm sorry.
I have something. Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just gotta find it. Just came to mind.
Freaking cold medicine's killing me.
So the Budget Committee, I'm bringing this forth on behalf of the Budget Committee who asked me to pass this along to the Select Board that when we have proposed formal recommendations, that motion to recommend the town of Goffstown uses governing bodies only use language that identifies the funding source for appropriation articles. Meaning that we should refrain from identifying unassigned fund balance as not being raised by taxation. And the purpose of that is to add more clarity to the language, per the DRA language that we have to put on warrant articles, to say something like, use of fund balance not to be raised by new taxation, to be paid for by previous year's taxation, no new amount to be raised by taxation in 2025. Basically, Derek and Danielle talked with DRA about other language, and the committee looked at what other communities had in their warrant articles for unassigned fund balance use. So they asked that I pass this along, and the school board as well, that when we're writing our warrant articles this year, that we put forth some additional clarifying language for warrant articles and what is on the ballot, which I think is something that we can definitely do. There's some options out there, and Derek and Danielle already confirmed that we're able to do it legally through DRA's recommendations. So,
But not all of that unassigned fund balance is from taxation. Some of it's raised because of unanticipated revenues. So how could you say to eliminate just the words taxation if some of it,
no, I think it's to add language, so it would say something like, not to be raised by new taxation, or not to be paid for from previous year's funds, or something along those
yeah, I
lines.
could say previous year's funds, but not because not all of it comes from taxation, some of it's unanticipated revenue.
Right, or no new amount to be raised by 2025 taxation. So
Yeah.
to let people know it's coming from years prior.
Yeah, I think you can
clarify.
do that when the time comes, right?
Yep.
Yes, we can give you, what we have done, so you did not have any warrant articles in 2024 from fund balance. So, for example, in 2023, when you funded the fire department apparatus capital reserve fund, the last sentence read, "This sum to come from unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised by taxation." Is my understanding, the budget committee was not in favor of the second part of that sentence where it said, "and no amount to be raised by taxation."
But it's not.
That's right, it's not.
From previous taxation.
Yes,
And
so
other-
we,
and others.
we'll give the board some optional, language if you want to, when you consider that. Because again, staff recommendation is to once again fund the fire department apparatus capital reserve fund from unassigned fund balance. So, when we get to the point where we start drafting warrant articles, we'll give you some options.
Okay, that's fine.
So
Anything
thank you,
else?
I'll let them know that we're looking at that and
All right.
considering.
Motion?
Set. Motion to go into non-public session, RSA 91A:32, what'd you say it was?
A, compensation.
A, compensation.
Second.
Motion to go into non-public. Jim?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
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 That'll conclude tonight's public portion of the meeting. We'll be going into non-public. Thank you.